Welcome to Herby at Heart, where herbalism grows in the roots of our hearts, an intrinsic journey where we dwell on the deep and expand the narrow. As always, staring your favorite herbalists. Tash, find her on Avant Garden Life on
Yo,
Instagram.
yo.
And me, Philip, Power Plants Berlin. One plant, one show, and the interview with a person who represents a part of that plant.
Yeah. Today's plant will soothe your senses and mellow us out. Known to some as blue mallow, to others as common malve, and to a few as cheesecake.
What?
Malve sepia, as well as the more famous cousin, marshmallow, will be our plants of intention today. This month, we also have an absolute pleasure of interviewing and chatting with the wondrous Monica Wilde, who decided to eat wild food for a year and see what it did to the biome. So sit back, relax, and let this episode soothe your soul.
Wow, that sounds exciting. I'm already in that mood. So we're going to start with a song, as always, I would say. And let's start with something very soothing. From the German artist Malva,
Oh,
which I found beautifully matching our theme of the show. And with another artist called Jesper Munk, and they have this beautiful song, Romance with a Memory. Thank you, Malva.
nice and smooth. That was very soothing.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like she does very, very nice music.
Very silky.
Very silky. Silky, it's gonna stay silky a little bit. We're gonna talk about the Malva family, Mallow, Malva celestris, the Marshmallow, Alteo officinalis, and all these mucilage plants, mucus
I
creating
think that's
plants.
what that sounds like, that word.
It's a little bit hard.
That was
it's
like
a hard
really
word
from
for me as a native German.
Mhm.
So, I think what I want to talk about is before we getting in the specifics on the plant, how beautiful it is, how it's growing with the beautiful flower and so on, that you
Blah, blah,
all
blah
can
bit.
blah 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 that you all can find online by watching or just outside watching a Malva. I want to share a little story. And that was 2019, that's 6 years ago. And I decided spontaneously to go to India for a month with a girl I met on OkCupid.
I love it.
Yeah, it's a classic story. No? so what could go wrong, I thought. And a lot of interesting stuff happened on that journey. It was a beautiful journey. But the classic things, it wasn't Montezuma's revenge. I think it was, I don't know, Hanuman's revenge that got me on in India in the last 2 days on the journey back from Tiruvannamalai to Mumbai, a 30-hour train ride. I got I was stuck next to the toilet
Got
with
Delhi
like
belly.
extreme diarrhea, and that was horrible. And it didn't go away. It didn't go away for more than a week.
Oh, wow.
And I was so exhausted. I was losing so much weight and so much fluids. It was really horrible. Even back in Germany, I was just sick the whole time, and nothing I took was really working. So since I didn't know what to do, and I don't really like consulting doctors on these things because I wasn't down to take antibiotics, I thought I'm gonna ask my pendulum. So I took out my little pendulum, and at that time I wasn't so keen on herbal medicines and herbalism in general. So I was just looking for plants that can help me with diarrhea, and I was just like testing them with my pendula. This one, yes. No. This one is not the plant I need. And actually, I had no clue. I think I was just alphabetically going through a list of plants that I found online on a website, which was quite amusing. And I got stuck with the marshmallow. Okay, I never at that time heard of that plant. So I went to the next market, I think here in Friedrichshain, Boxy Market was open, and one person was selling marshmallow leaves. I took them home, did a cold infusion, because with the mucus plants, it's always a nice try not to heat them up too much, but do a cold infusion, and then you get the most mucus out of it. And I drank it one time, all gone. No more
Wow.
diarrhea, completely healed. It was incredible. I never, and it's not true, I have these experiences, but it was just randomly with my pendulum going for the marshmallow. And since then, I understood a little bit more about how mucus is important for all our epithelial cells. Our interview guest is going to talk a little bit more on that later. How it's soothing the gut for when you have any kind of inflammation or your mucus system is broken. Leaky gut syndrome is a classic that everybody knows at the moment. It's quite a trendy disease.
Yeah.
And for these, the mallow plants are just beautiful. And I thought I'm gonna do that as an opener because
I think that was a wonderful story. It had a bit of everything.
yeah, thank you.
You know, really,
Just like me.
yeah. Yeah, Mallow. So as you all know, we take the plant in different ways throughout the month where possible. Yeah, I've had an interesting sort of experience with this plant. I took the tincture actually that you had made me, and I have found it so difficult to get into connection with this plant. I have almost never had this with a plant. I always can sort of get in there somewhere or kind of relate with it, and there was nothing. There was nothing coming back. I had some sensations like körperlich, bodily sensations of like testing it, which I did because I hadn't taken this type before, just to make sure that I didn't have an allergy. I tested it first on my skin, and I felt the coolness of it and the soothingness of it. But besides that, I didn't get a lot. And then as the days proceeded, I started to get a little bit almost freaked out that I had lost my plant mojo.
Oh no.
I was like, oh my God, have I lost like this plant communication?
It's a scary one, yeah.
It really freaked me out. And then what I realized is I had to be quiet. That she is so quiet. She is so gentle and soothing and delicate in such a way that I had to quieten my body to really listen. And it was it was a really good exercise in humility, in like humbling me to sometimes to also not be so fast, to not have these high expectations, to not think that everything has to be loud and big and extraordinary, that actually when it's also very soft and gentle and delicate is also there's something so beautiful in that. And I think that we often forget that in our society. You know, there's so many influences from everywhere and everything, and that just to sit and be quiet and listen to see what comes back is very underused in our society. And it really taught me that this plant, it was quite an extraordinary, in the end, it's become quite an extraordinary experience for me working with this plant. It's making my herbal mojo, which I thought had disappeared, has deepened.
I'm shaking my head because
he doesn't believe me.
No, I always believe you most of the time. Sometimes, okay, let's be honest. I'm shaking my head because again, we have not been communicating except this one thing, like nothing is happening. It was like, there's nothing for me happening as well.
Yeah.
But now that you're talking about it, it's fascinating. I did write poems about how I should listen, how I should quiet down.
Wow.
Because I'm going to art therapy from time to time. It's a beautiful place to express myself. And I did write poems about stillness and all these kind of things. And stillness and quieting down has been the topic of my last weeks. And I'm not kidding, since I started the Malva,
that is
without even realizing. And we did not have this conversation.
No.
It is true.
It's kind of scary because this happened to us with the last plant. plants. So we're doing this a lot more and more where we take the plant, we don't talk about it. And I actually didn't do any research until 2 days ago with this plant because I didn't want to know. I knew quite a lot about it, but I didn't want to really go depth. And there was another thing that came up, which I sort of think why this plant is so quiet. It's a bit unassuming. You know, everything I read about it, marshmallow is superior. And it's almost as if this particular species or this particular type of mallow feels so inferior that the only way to come out has to be from this very, very quiet space. And I started to get into lots of stuff about cultures and listening to people speaking their languages, which actually we will be talking about a little bit later. But it's quite interesting, this calming, soothing, which is what it does, but how this quietness. And I feel so centered the last few days. I really upped the dose as well. There's been a lot of stuff going on around me, and I feel so in my center and so calm and so quiet. And it's really, I can't look, I'm stammering.
Funny. It's funny and fascinating. So I had problems connecting with that plant as well. And at some point I was like, okay, I don't know what to do. I don't even know what I'm going to talk about in the radio show. So 2 days ago, I decided that I try a little experiment with the plant. And there's a YouTube channel, it's called Sitting with Dogs. And there's a guy just sitting with dogs and making contact with them. So I started my own thing. It's sitting with plants. And I sat down with the plant and I invoke the spirit of the plant and started communicating in calmness, in depth, in a kind of meditative state. And starting asking questions, because this is how I communicate with plants. I sit down with them and I get into a conversation. And I believe everybody can do it. We just don't really do it. So if you have the feeling like a plant is interesting you or something, like just get out there, sit down and ask some questions and see what comes up. And I did bring a piece of paper that I wrote down, and I found it quite fascinating what it told me.
So what has the Malva has to say?
I asked it what it's here for and what it does bring in the world. And it was a very surprising answer because it told me it is an incarnation plant. So it is a plant that guides you back into your body. And I know other incarnation plants, and there's for example, there's Angelica I like as an incarnation plant. It's very powerful rooting you. So I asked it, what is the difference coming to Angelica? And it's and she told me quite clearly, Angelica is rooting you. It's so powerful. It's creating a system for you. And Malva, the mallow, she told me, but I know the way and I show you the direction, but you be walking it alone. So Angelica is just doing the work for you in a state where you really, you can't do it anymore. And the mallow is showing us the way, how to get there, because there's a trust. You can do it. You can make it. Just sit down. Just be quiet. Just listen. And I guide you. I guide you back to your center. I guide you back to your body, to your incarnation. So that was quite beautiful. And then I thought a little bit about it because the plant, it has this beautiful blue purple flower, 5-petal flower. It's fucking amazing. When you see it outside, it's just shiny and beautiful. And blue, from a planetary aspect, is connected to Jupiter or Zeus or whatever. It's the idea in the planetary aspect is guidance. So it is a lot about royalty, guidance in a way of guiding others, but also the plant can do the guidance for you. So I found that quite fascinating. And I wanted to know a little bit about the connection of the marshmallow and the malva, because I was doing it with the Malva sylvestris.
Yeah.
And if they're working the same. And she was a little bit it's like asking your cousin if you're the same person. It's yeah, okay, I'm sorry for that.
Sorry for offending you.
Yeah. So that was quite amazing. And as a last question, I asked her what I can do for her, or what we can do for her if we see her outside. And it's something I'd like to share because it's one of my teachers, Wolf-Dieter Storl, he also said this, don't look away, say my name, look out for me, tell me that I'm beautiful. And I think it's important for every plant out there. Recognize them.
Yeah.
They're really happy if you know their name, if you speak to them, if you talk to them, if you recognize them, if you honor them, if you tell them that you love them. Wolf-Dieter Stoll even goes so far. It's like that's the only an environmental thing we need to do is be in the forest and sing for the trees, because that's how they are gaining their energy, and that's how what they're living from. And I'm now not 100% agreeing to his opinion, but I believe it's true that we kind of forgot doing that. So if you see a Malva or any kind of plant you love, just tell her that you love her. I think
And
that's
stop
important.
saying that she's inferior to Marshmallow.
Yeah.
I really was I was highly offended when I was reading that people were
It's
using
interesting.
this term, and in a lot of places, people they weren't using it in this awful way. But I didn't like this idea that one was more inferior than the other. They're just different. One's maybe a little bit more powerful in its punch than
Yeah.
the other one. And what I really found with this mellow was if you need something delicate, if you need, if you're feeling hypersensitive, maybe some other herbs are a bit too harsh. This is a really beautiful herb to bring softness back to the hard spaces in a way,
true.
like to just, bring there was I went into some other very deep stuff, but we're not going to talk about it today, because we never have so much time. But I really enjoyed working with this plant and learnt a lot about my work as a herbalist, and it deepened my work a lot
Nice.
this time.
Yeah, same. Very happy about it.
Yeah.
Should we talk about how you would use it and how it's used traditionally, so that people get a little bit of an idea of like what the plant is used for?
Yeah, like we can use it. A lot of people use it for food. I found some really funny recipes here and there, and the different parts that you can use. I kind of found the idea that I think I would use it for quite emotional purposes, and for this idea of when someone feels inferior, when they feel like they're lower than everyone else and feel like there isn't any room for them and feel like the world is against them, and that they're almost maybe people who, can't leave their apartments or can't come in contact with many people, to give them like a space which is soft and gentle, and to show them their way a little bit again, that it's okay to be out there and it's okay to be soft and gentle. I really felt like that's what I learned from working with the plant. And I would love to make a flower essence. I don't have a flower essence of this plant. And also just the usual suspects with the Mallow family, with digestive. I found some interesting stuff about kidney stones and a lot of kidney complaints. Which you use also the marshmallow for. I've used a lot of marshmallow for lung stuff, and I felt this plant on my lungs. It was the only body part that I really hit. So I would probably use it for that as well.
One of the biggest use in traditional, also in modern medicine, is to use it as a respiratory plant for colds, for coughs, bronchitis, sore throats, lung inflammations, all these kind of things, to soothe, to calming down the mucous membranes. And there's a saying to treat one disease with the same, basically, a little bit the idea of esopathy. Schleim on schleim, mucus on mucus. If you have a lot of mucus, you actually go for a mucus plant, which sounds a little bit contradictory, but it does work bringing out the mucus from your body. It's like giving the same impulse to your life force that it can balance out itself. So I was a big plant for me in COVID times. It's amazing for any kind of lung diseases, respiratory
For
diseases.
the dryness, particularly with
Yes.
COVID,
Yeah.
it was really good.
Yeah. So any kind of mucus membranes, it's helping for that.
Yeah.
And I like the marshmallow in general. I find it quite nice. Because there's so much mucus inside, and I find that quite beautiful. But now getting in contact with the mallow, I I understand why you would use it for children, for example, also.
Yeah.
Because it's so soft and it's
Mm.
it's such a tender plant,
Yeah.
and it's purple, and that is an interesting thing also. If a child doesn't want to drink the tea, you just add on a little malva and it changes the color also. So it's a little magic potion.
Yeah, they love that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's cute.
And it is, Jen, I liked that word tenderness that you used, actually. I think that really hits the nail on the head. That I gave it to my partner this
Tender
morning.
nail.
Tender nail. I gave it to my partner this morning because I just wanted to see like how it was working on someone else. And they were words that he used as well, like clarity and softness and tenderness, and like a very soft grounding, and an I, which is a very German thing, which kind of little kiddies say. And it's like a child's plant, like I, where you stroke someone and go, it's all right, I guess would be the translation in English.
And that's amazing. It brings us a little bit back to our last episode with Dr. Eileen Naomi Rusk.
Yeah.
And she was talking about the vagus nerve and how to get in contact with that. And I started being a part of her working group and exercises for calming and soothing down. And the vagus nerve is there for parasympathetic activity, so to calm down the nervous system. And there she does use exercises like stroking yourself and doing like shh, like a mom would do for her child. And it's a little bit, it's a little bit same
mellowy.
energy. It's mellow.
It's a bit that same energy.
I mean, mallow with an E and mallow with an A.
I know.
Like, it's so close.
Which I also thought was funny.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
beautiful.
I kept on saying like mellow.
Feeling so mellow today. So yeah, but it's there. It's part of the signature also.
Yeah, and it's a great plant. Also, it's quite a cooling, sweet plant. So it's quite, it cools those inflamed areas in our system. I actually just had a sore tooth last week. And weirdly enough, I was using it as well because I kept on swishing it in my mouth and it felt really good. And it really calmed. I was using some other herbs, but I felt how much it calmed like the area, like my gum. And then later I was reading about it, how people use it for also gum situations. And it is just to calm the mucous membrane in there.
Beautiful.
So that's just another throw out there, because I think a lot of people have gum issues and a lot of people don't know what to use for them. And it's a nice soft one that you could use with a little bit of myrrh, which is great for the gums.
It's a classic. Yeah, it's really
good
nice.
Old classic.
Try it out if you find it outside. Try to eat it. You can put it in your salad. You can do a hot infusion, but I would suggest try out a cold infusion. Just put the plants with water and let them rest overnight and see how thick and slimy and silky it gets in the morning. And it's a little bit like flaxseed. It's like it's so fat and beautiful and rich. It's amazing for all the mucous membranes in the body.
Yeah, and for your skin, throw it in your baths. Good if you've got eczema and stuff.
On the hair, actually, it's also amazing to thicken, like making a beautiful hair conditioner thing.
Thick. Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
I wouldn't think to use it like that.
Yeah.
To thicken up those thin hair. That's why I have you to thicken up my thick hair.
Yeah.
Get more.
Exactly. Okay, I think it's time for a song, huh? We have been talking for 20 minutes again.
Yeah, always too much. You're always talking so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
So here we have Let's Soothe You with Soothe Me from Sam and Dave.
That was soothing me.
And soothing me and soothing you. Soothe your soul.
Soothe yourself. So, here on Herby at Heart, as you all know, we are all about exploring the power of plants, and today's topic, the mallow with a sprinkle of marshmallow, has a deep connection to our interviewer's work. And our today interview guest is going to be Monica Wilde, also known as Mo, and her Wildbiome Project, where she delved into the world of wild food. And it likely brought her up close and personal with these mucilage-rich plants. And we're curious to hear her perspectives on how these herbs can benefit our digestive system and contribute to a balanced gut microbiome. Given a focus on integrative medicine, We'll also explore how the sometimes forgotten common mallow can fit into a broader approach to health and well-being. And in general, we're gonna talk with Mo about her passion, herbalism, foraging, and some very unexpected and interesting topics about our ancestors' gut biome. So stay tuned. It's gonna be very exciting.
Yeah, we're very excited. Monica Wilde, also known as Mo, is an ethnobotanist, research herbalist, and award winning author living in Scotland, where she teaches from a self built wooden house and wild garden on 4 organic acres. She's been fascinated by herbs since a child and grew up on 4 continents with influences from numerous cultures and people. A fellow of the Linnean Society, founder member of the Association of Foragers, she holds a MSc in herbal medicine and has spent decades teaching foraging and herbal medicine to restore a vital connection with nature. Mo directs the Clade Clinic, focusing on herbal and integrative approaches to post-viral illnesses, including Lyme's disease, and founded the Wildbiome Project, a citizen science study on the impact of wild food diets. Her acclaimed book, The Wilderness Cure, from Simon and Schuster from 2022, won the John Avery Award and has been translated into multiple languages. Mo has just brought out a second book, Free Food Wild Plants, How to Eat Them, also published by Simon and Schuster this year in March. So go out there, grab your copy. And this explains about identification, seaweeds, nuts, spices, and safe, delicious foods to eat, including foraging staples, how to eat them, how to make them, how to prepare them, wild berries, gluten-free, roots and nuts. The list is endless. It is beautifully illustrated. It will awaken your sense of wonder, whatever your lifestyle, whether you're an enthusiast forager or simply curious about wild foods. This book will inspire you to get outside and reconnect with nature.
That sounds amazing. So let's welcome our guest, Monica Wilde. So, hi, Monica. Hi, Mo. We're very happy to welcome you here and thank you for your time. And we want to just dive right in with the first question, and that's about your upbringing, because it has been enriched by a tapestry of different cultures. And how have these diverse influences shaped your work and perspectives today?
Yes, it was an interesting question because I would have to imagine what it's like to be somebody else in order to really sort of fully understand that. But I think, we traveled around a lot when I was a child. My father worked mainly in Kenya and Malawi, and but also a little bit in the West Indies and in Tonga. But even before that, my grandmother was born in India. I mean, they were Irish, but she was born in India and married a man who'd been born in the port of Gibraltar on his way to India. They both grew up in India because my great-grandmother and my great-great-grandmother were both born in India.
Wow.
Whereas my aunts and uncles were born in Kenya and Malawi.
Wow.
So our family has this long tradition, certainly on my mother's side, of not living in the dominant culture which everybody thinks they belong to. So it's been curious because, I was sent to boarding school when I was a little girl because that's what people did in those days. You sent them back to the UK to get an education. So I have this accent which everybody assumes that I'm very English, But in actual fact, I have never felt English in my life. And I think that what it brings to my work is the fact that I don't take anything for granted. Because I know that somewhere else it might be different. And I don't necessarily take the predominant culture view as being the view or the cultural view, because I know that in many parts of the world, this is different. And it's made me very open to also express, to listening to what other people's perspective and points of view are. So, for example, with foraging, which is what most people, know me for, my connection with wild food. Here in the UK, a lot of people, I would say, that culturally think that foraging is a kind of bit of a yuppie thing, or a bit of a sort of middle-class rural thing, or maybe a chefy thing.
Right, okay.
But it's certainly niche, darling. It's certainly very niche.
Yeah.
But worldwide, globally, still 40 or 50% of the world's population still depend on wild food as a major source of nutrients in their diet. And in some parts of the world, it is the only source still, although that's rapidly changing and not to their benefit. And in times of, war, that increases. In times of natural disaster, earthquakes and hurricanes, things, that increases. So to me, it's not a niche thing at all.
Yeah.
But that's because I'm not always thinking of it from this Anglo-centric point of view.
I think it's a really good point you're bringing up, and a really good thing to also let the audience or our audience know, that because people do really place the foraging in those niches which you're talking about, and it's in so many different cultures, and it's so vibrant all over the world. And it's wonderful that you've had such an input throughout your life to view it like that, and to also let the people out there know that it's not just about these few little spaces of people that are doing it. That kind of brings us to our next question with your Wildbiome Project. Now, we find this really interesting, and I think our listeners will find this really interesting. You lived in the Corona time on food for a year, just wild food. And this sparked an incredible journey for you, involved like a fascinating research project. Did you start that during the Wildbiome Project, where you started testing your biome? Because you were testing it once a month, is that right? Where you were sending away samples to see if it was changing while you were eating the wild food?
Yeah, well, it was about once every 2 to 3 months. So I set out and it was November 2020 to November 2021, my year, never from the 1st of January to the 31st of December, but from the 29th of November, which was Black Friday, what I call the high mass day of consumerism. That was when I started. And I set out to live without spending money on food for a year, eating only wild food for the year. And part of me, I'm always this balance of art and science, of intuition and being rational and logical. So, part of the reason for doing it was just to prove a point. Could it still be done? Part of it was political, but the scientific side of me said, well, let's measure this, So I didn't have the money, because these gut tests are very expensive, to do it every single month. But I thought, what I'll do is I'll do a test when each significant food cycle changes. So I did one before I started, and in total I did 6 over the course of the year. And that was really interesting. Some of it you could sort of understand what was going on. There's some of it's very well researched. I lost a lot of weight, which for me was surprising, because I have lipedema and I do not normally, I can diet as much as I like and nothing happens.
That's interesting.
And so some of the bacteria that are associated with being obese had changed dramatically. So yeah, I understood that bit. And then there were other interesting things that you could make a logical correlation. So oxalobacter formigenes, which breaks down oxalates in your gut, increased by 1,100% when I started eating lots of oxalates in the spring.
Yeah.
So yeah. But then a lot of it I didn't understand, of course, because A, the science is very new. I'm not sure how many people fully understand it anyway. And B, that's not my area of expertise.
Yeah.
So I went out looking for scientific opinion. I wrote off to various researchers at universities and people I knew were involved with, gut microbiome projects. I wasn't looking for anything free, but, trying to find somebody, and, the same with the laboratories, who could give me an opinion on what might have been going on. And really got the feedback of, well, it actually really needs to be a study, not just, one or two people doing something weird. You need to have a proper study, you need a control group and so on. So that's really where the idea started. Well, I could get more people doing this.
Yeah.
And I, spoke to other people in the Association of Foragers, which was an organization that we set up 10 years ago now, as a community of people working in this space. And so then we did, the first official Wildbiome Project. And the results were very interesting. But, that was still just 24 people, of which 22 completed. And then occasionally blood tests, somebody's blood test will fail or something will go wrong. So you end up with 19 to 20 sets of complete results. So it's still just a small study, or what most people would think of as a pilot study. And it also brings up, when more people are doing it, you have lots more questions as well.
Yeah.
So 2 years later, this spring, we then did it again with 100 people starting.
Wow.
And and then, I mean, it's crazy really, because it's not, it's not funded. I'm, working for free and can't sustain that for, forever. And, but if you're project managing 100 people and then having to analyze and write up all the data afterwards, you can't then do a lot else.
Yeah.
Anyway, but we're very hopeful. We've got a lot of interest from the University of Bradford, to, wonderful people, Julia Beaumont and Hannah Kuhn in the School of Archaeological and Forensic Science. And they put together a funded project, and we're, very close to finding out whether we've got all the funding that we need. They've certainly got, some of it, and started to analyze hair and nail samples.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Great.
So, next year, we'll run it again in the autumn with around a similar amount of people. And I will have help.
Yay. And we hope that it...
Or rather, I will just be helping them, which will be even nice.
Yeah.
And it'll be properly paid for, and the participants aren't going to have to help you raise money and things. But, it's been a long slog. But I think, to me, I do it because I think it's really important.
It is,
Yeah.
Food is is absolutely vital to our existence. And, this goes back to your first question, because I currently live in Britain and we haven't had a war since the 1940s, and we've got an ocean around us, and we're a, developed nation, she said in inverted commas, because you can't see me making funny sounds. We somehow think we're immune to what else is happening in the world. And I don't think that, because, I've lived in countries where people are starving. I've lived in countries where, if the rains fail, if the climate changes and the rains fail, people die. And, and I don't also take it for granted that there'll always be peace. And, we're living in, uncertain times, and our whole food economy is geared up to stability. There's only 3 days of food in the supply chain at any one time, apparently. This just in time, though, I mean, it's hard to believe it's only 3 days. There'll be orders and warehouses where they're ripening bananas, and also, I mean, it's got to be more than 3. But I did notice that when we had beast from the east, the little shops around me, I'm in sort of a rural area near the sort of central, very developed central belt, but a lot of the shops went out of bread and milk and all the basics,
We had that here
very,
too.
very quickly, and weren't then restocked. And, you know, we saw in Spain recently what happened when the national grid went down. Chaos.
Yeah.
You know, if terrorists decided to, I don't know, take out the national grid, what would happen to all the just-in-time food supplies?
Yeah.
You know, so there's that food security element. Now, I'm not a prepper, believe me, but did seem to me crazy that we knew more about the Hadza, who live in a very different food environment, and you know, and what was going on in their guts. So we did know about what would happen if we went back to our ancestral diet, our indigenous diet, here in the UK, and what effect that would have on our bodies.
Yeah, and also it's a matter of education. A lot of people don't have the information or the knowledge anymore on even how to do that, what to pick, what to collect. So I think your study is going to be super important, and for the community, for the herbalism in general, foraging community, like just to get a broader view and people understanding what we unfortunately forgot in our last 100 years or a little bit further.
Yeah.
And I think that whole thing about your indigenous biome and indigenous diet is really important, even here. You know, in the first Wildbiome Project, we were sponsored by Zoe, Professor Tim Spector very kindly sponsored us, and we were sponsored by Zoe. And they create their Zoe microbiome score by analysing 100 what they call good bacteria and 100 what they call bad bacteria. And the good bacteria, really the bacteria that they're seeing in the gut microbiome of all the people in their study that tend to have good health outcomes. And the bad bacteria tend to be associated with people with bad health outcomes. And you know, we had one person in the study who was extremely healthy, going by the blood tests and body parameters, was one of the healthiest, and whose, you know, pre and post Wildbiome diet was full of fermented foods and things, you know, to all intents and purposes, doing exactly all of the right things. But, you know, in the gut microbiome sample, there were no good bacteria.
Oh, wow.
So why was this?
Yeah.
Because this person was actually born and brought up in another culture.
Okay. Interesting.
You know? So, you know, and, you know, we do know that in different places there are different pockets and pools. And, you know, so a lot of the research, you also have to think, well, you know, this research is being done on a particular set of people. You know, so what does that mean for people who don't necessarily belong to that set?
Yeah.
So that was one of the, you know, interesting things about, you know, pulling this data, you know, out again this time, you know, with even more people. And it's like, you know, well, maybe we have an indigenous biome according to our indigenous diet. Because if you go to Africa, and I mean, I have spent many years of my life there, and I still go back to Namibia. I'm working on a foundation project with the Jutamasi Bushmen in the Kalahari.
Oh, lovely.
And you know, if you go foraging there, you'll find that there's like, you know, tiny little wisps of green. And as soon as somebody's eagle eyes spot those, you know, you dig down, and then there's a giant tuber under there, the size of a, you know, small baby or something.
Yeah.
And so everybody eats a lot of these fibrous tubers, and there's very little in the way of greens. And even when there are fruits, you know, like sandpaper raisin and things like that, a lot of them are very dry because it's incredibly hot there. Here we have the opposite thing. We have hardly any roots to talk about because they're, you know, a lot of them are stringy and tough after the first year. They certainly don't, I don't know of any root in Scotland, let alone the UK, that's the size of something in the Langley Conservancy, you know. And we're eating lots and lots of greens, and we have these big plump berries, virtually no roots, and we certainly don't have any wild beans to, I mean, you know, there's a few vetches, but, you know, they're tiny. So of course, we would always have had a different indigenous microbiome because we're not eating the same food.
Yeah,
but we don't know anything about it.
It's kind of like ancestral biome research that you're doing, really, in kind of a little bit of that essence of like where we're really coming from. So it's not DNA, but biome. Very interesting. I find it.
And that does, that does interest me a lot, partly because of heart connection with the indigenous peoples of this earth, but also because of my own lack of ancestral connection to a place and where it's from, and and this sensitivity to cultural appropriation, which has been going on, which is a large part of there are so many issues around culture and colonialism when it comes to food, but let's not even start there. So I've always been interested in what is the indigenous culture here in the UK? What is the indigenous culture here in Scotland? How do we go back, not just physically and from a food point of view, but, spiritually into our own roots? I mean, before the Romans came and, all our oral records, which were never written down, all our stories, all our knowledge, disappeared because it wasn't written down, and the Druids and other people were persecuted in the name of progress and aqueducts and straight roads.
It's funny, I've been talking about this a little bit this week, this exact subject with different people. Maybe it's a common mallow theme, or something.
And I find it quite important that we a lot of people I know from a spiritual sense, we reach out to Eastern traditions to trying to find ourselves. And what I find very fascinating is digging in our own roots, looking where we're coming from. And there's all these traditions. There's the shamanistic traditions, there's the herbal traditions, there's the rituals, and they are forgotten, but not in nature, I think. It's all still there, and we need to find a way back to connect with that. So I find it beautiful that you're doing it also on a scientific way, because in these times I find it is very important that we are able to connect both of these sides in order to reach a public audience or a broader audience also.
Yeah. And I think going back to that first question again, what does having lived in so many different cultures give you? It also means that you learn that you have to adapt your language according to the different people that you're speaking to. And I find this in herbalism as well. I've done a lot of work in my herbal practice working with doctors and consultants in the mainstream. But a lot of my fellow herbalists feel really concerned about having to have any interaction with a patient's doctor or a patient's consultant. And I can understand that, because there has been a certain amount of dismissal and persecution of us as witches is actually not that long ago in a sort of evolutionary time. But at the same time, I find that if you actually take the time to speak someone else's language, and then people are generally receptive, or far more receptive than they would be otherwise.
I like this
so
concept.
Sometimes for patients, I've written to their GP and using their language, dear so and so, our mutual patient, blah blah, and use this sort of the same formal language that they would use when they're swapping notes between, keep it to the point, quite brief. Whereas if I was talking to another herbalist, I'd go into a lot of detail and, also talk about the, maybe the different constitutional states and things like that. You adapt your language according to the audience, because you have to, at the end of the day, you have to include everyone.
Exactly,
And we're living in a time where everything has become them and us. Good or bad, science or non-vaxxers, I think social media and possibly some of the political actors that manipulate us through social media, by creating division and separating everybody out, you create this disunity which results in chaos. Whereas I've always been far more interested in finding the language that will speak to people so that we can all still work together. And taking different viewpoints. And unfortunately, that sort of open discussion about certain areas online has become, taboo. People do not seem to be able to have open discussions that are difficult, where lots of points need airing, where lots of people need to be heard, without going into these like, well, if you don't agree with me, you're against me and you're a bad person.
And being exclusive becomes a popular and like positive thing suddenly, which is kind of ridiculous.
I think it's very inspiring how you're approaching all areas of your work with this idea of growing up with so many influences and trying to approach everything with this inclusiveness and this idea of speaking the people's languages, of speaking each other languages and being really open to that. I think that's very important in our day and age, and it's extremely inspiring.
We are limited in our time for the interview, so I want to get back to the topic of our radio show today, which is the Malva family, especially the common marrow or marshmallow also. And I wonder in this project of yours, because it is a big potpourri of plants that you're consuming apparently, because it's wild plants, it's depending on the seasons. So was there any kind of Malva involved in your work? And as a herbalist and ethnobotanist, you probably know these plants quite well. And how do you use them? And maybe also mucilaginous plants in general for the benefit of the gut biome.
Well, I certainly eat it. Mallow, and I mean, here we don't really get marshmallows so much. It very much likes the sort of saltier coastal areas of the southeast. So I've never seen marshmallow growing wild here. But we have common mallow, and we have a lot of tree mallow, the lavateras, the tree mallows as well. And, they're lovely when you use them in cooking because they add thickness to things. Their mucilaginous qualities helps to thicken things. So I use them, for instance, a lot in soups and stews. And in places like, I think it's Syria, they have a dish called malochia. Or is it? Certainly, it might not be Syria, but in that region, they have a dish called malochia, where it's actually a soup made using mallows, precisely because it gives you that sort of slightly mucilaginous texture to the dish, which, considering it's related to okra, is so, there's, if you think of those sort of side dishes and things that you get with okra, you can do that with this sort of what we call the mallow cheeses, these buns. And, so from that point of view, and of course, food-wise, marshmallow was originally used to make marshmallow sweets, although nowadays there's no marshmallow in them at all. But from a herbal perspective, it's a really interesting plant. Of course, the name comes from, alphos, which means to cure, and malachite, which is to soften. So it's a plant that is curing around hardness and softness. And, so the mucilaginous means that it helps to create a mucus. So it helps to line, this sliminess, other people would call it, it's a bit slimy. It helps to line the epithelial tissues and just calm everything down. And what you have to remember about epithelial tissue, which is the lining of things like the lungs and the lining of things like the bladder, is that it's all connected inside us. I mean, when you think of humans, we're actually just really donuts with a funny shaped hole in the middle. And all the skin on the inside is this epithelial tissue, and it's all joined up. And the skin is this incredibly large organ. There have been studies that show that in children with eczema, if you put a little starflower oil on one elbow, the eczema throughout will calm down. So it's like the skin has these different chain reactions. So the epithelial tissue inside is all connected. And, the root, marshmallow root, which tends to be the part that you go to mainly for the gut, is incredibly good at soothing and calming down an inflamed gut. So with things like IBS or stomach ulcers or any irritation, gastric reflux and acid and all the rest of it, it really does help to sort of calm everything down. As do mucilaginous plants in general, but things like slippery elm, which is another go-to one that does a similar function in that, is actually far more expensive. And, when I'm treating patients, I'm always aware of the cost of medicine for them. So, and then the leaf, which is sort of softer, tends to be used more for the lungs and the respiratory parts and the bladder itself as well, and the urinary part. So it's almost like, this plant goes two ways, from its root in the gut, and let's face it, all health is rooted in the gut, really. It spreads out into, the lungs on one side and the bladder on the other. And it cools things down. And it's, it's cooling and it's salty and it's moisturizing. And it helps to bring moisture and cooling back into the tissues. Saying that, it's actually really effective on Vata type people. And sometimes can be a bit too much for people who are sort of kapha. People who are kapha like me, we already have a lot of fluid in the body. And, would tend to get things like, fibromyalgia or other things like that, because there's this imbalance of moisture in the body, and there's moisture in the muscles and things. Whereas the Vata people, these wonderful, airy-headed people who always have such trouble with their digestion, that tends to be the absolute sort of go-to herb of choice for them as well.
Interesting.
So, it's a really interesting group. And of course, when you think about, I always think about, plants not in isolation, but in terms of their families as well. And as well, I mentioned okra, but this is also in the same family as linden, lime.
Yeah.
And if you ever eat young lime leaves, of which I have huge salads every spring, again, you can immediately taste that mucilaginous, slightly salty, softening, moistening.
Even the tea alone, when you drink a linden tea, is like silk. I always think it's like drinking silk.
Yeah, and it's also related to cacao.
Yeah.
And also the baobab tree.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
Yeah, or quite silky somehow. There's something silky about them all. I'm very vattery, so it's a great... all that family's very good for me.
Yeah, same.
It's a very...
Yeah.
Yeah, Philip's doing a little hand there because we're really over time.
Yeah, and we always ask a last question.
Yeah.
Because I think we could continue the whole show interviewing you, but we are limited to time.
I'm sorry, was I talking too much?
No, we love
very
it.
Interesting and very fascinating, your work. So thank you for sharing with us. And as a last question, we just always ask, is there something with the audience in Berlin and Germany that you would like to share, that you would bring out in the world before we ask you for the song that you would like to play?
Oh, gosh. I encourage people to add something wild to their diet, even if it's just one thing, some nettles or some dandelion leaves. It really reconnects you with your environment and your body. And I like to say to people, if you are what you eat, what happens when what you eat is wild?
Oh, I got goosebumps.
So eat something every day. Go on, give it a go.
That's beautiful. Beautiful last words. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did you have a song for us? Do you have a favorite song or a song you're listening to at the moment?
I hadn't thought of it, but the first thing that comes to my head is Tom Waite's Green Grass.
Oh,
Beautiful.
beautiful. Would you like to introduce it?
It's a song that just really speaks to me. And, you know, he's got such an interesting, gravelly voice. And I don't know, it's open to interpretation, that song. But I think I'm going to have it played at my funeral.
Oh, I love it. So, open your interpretation. Here is Tom Waits.
And Green Grass.
Green Grass.
And we are back from a beautiful interview, from a more beautiful song. And as always, on this time part of the show, it is time for
Recipe time.
So we have been talking about the mallow today, the mallow, and we're going to talk about the marshmallow. And we all know marshmallows from these slimy thingy things that you can burn over
Slimy
fire.
thingy things.
You know what I'm
It's
talking
white.
about. It's like white, whatever this is.
White things, but there is no marshmallow
There's
in
no
the
mallow
marshmallow.
inside there. So we want to give you a recipe where you can put marshmallow back into your life.
Marshmallow back into the mellow.
Yes, empower the marshmallow. Okay. No, I want to provide you with a little recipe for coming up diseases, for your...
Coming up diseases.
Yeah.
Right. Ones that you could be getting at some point in your life from now.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just me talk. Love.
You
Thank
just look pretty.
You
You just look pretty.
look pretty and shut up. Okay. So we're gonna talk about. I want to provide you with a recipe for a coughing syrup that you can do yourself, made of marshmallow. You just need dried marshmallow root. You chop that down, add a little bit of water, 200 milliliters of water, 100 grams of raw honey. Find some honey that is from outside of a city, preferably from places that you know, from a imker, I don't know, honey maker.
Beekeeper.
Thank you. From a beekeeper
There
that you
is
know.
another name for it. Can't think of it right now.
Yeah. You just need to chop it down, let it, put it in the water, add a seal, let it sit in a cool, dark place for like 2 days, shaking it occasionally a little bit, strain the mixture, prettily chanting on the root to get all the ingredients out and all the water and liquid that you know.
Soothe it out.
Soothe it out there. Then gently warm up the honey until it's liquid, or you already have liquid honey. Combine it with the strained liquid and store it in a dark bottle in a cool, dark place. Also, if you want, you can add a little bit of alcohol, like 20% alcohol, to the watery mixture before to get some more and different ingredients out of that marshmallow. But that's not needed. For example, if you have children, you want to have it alcohol-free most of the time.
They can take a little bit of alcohol. Those cough mixtures can have. We can get
that's
them
how
drunk.
you ended up. Come on, let's not do
Also,
that.
the alcohol, a tiny little bit of alcohol in it, to be honest, will keep it.
It will keep.
I mean, the
preserve
honey
it, yeah.
actually does
Yeah,
keep
you're right.
well, but
Yeah, but it's not a bad idea. It's true. So that's been it again for this month. Isn't that crazy?
I know it goes so fast, but goes so slow.
It was
know.
beautiful. It was a very interesting experience, and I'm happy
was.
to share with you as always.
Yeah, with you too.
Yeah. Anything upcoming for you?
Yeah, I have my herbal course coming up in September. There's still a few spots. Look on my website, look on my Instagram, follow all the links, go on my newsletter. That's where all the info comes out. We are now on Substack as well, the radio, so you can check it out there, the podcast, if you've got Substack. And yeah,
that's about it. I'm on a summer holiday, so I'm not gonna do any workshops or anything. But
look at you, fancy pants.
Yeah, I'll be doing praxis. So if you need some guidance, you can look for Mallow. But if you need some more medical guidance, you can always hit us up at our praxis in Charlottenburg at Mommsenstraße 55. Contact us through the websites, through Instagram. We're always happy to help and guide and stand next to you through your processes.
Yeah.
And I think that's that.
I
And
wish you a lovely July.
yeah, beautiful summer, and we're back in August.
Yeah. Herby at heart.
Herby by nature.